Establish a clear DAISY. I think that's very, very important when a CRO jumps into any new role. Establish who is doing what, where are people accountable, where are people driving, where are people contributing, and where are people are informed. I think generally speaking on the informed side, to alleviate the I don't know what you're testing, inform everyone what you're testing.
Looking like a baddie, I show up and make them stop. Wanna know my name so badly, cause I run this whole block. Flip my hair, move my head, show the world I'm royalty. When I walk by, they be taking bows, cause they know I'm the queen, yeah.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another Experimentation conference talk. I'm Shiva. I'm a senior web product manager at Motive, and I'm also the founder of the Experimentation podcast from A to B. In today's talk, we'll be talking about dealing with problematic coworkers and experimentation. So, before we start, does this resonate with you? You have a brand team that maybe dislikes you, and then a UX team that maybe dislikes you. Devs maybe dislike you. If this resonates with you, you're in the right place. What I want to talk to you about is... No, I actually don't want to talk about you. Don't be selfish. I'm talking about your coworkers and their quote-unquote problematic behaviors. Your coworkers can support or destroy the growth of your experimentation program. And the hope is that you come away from this talk with tips, tricks, mental models on how you can get your coworkers to support your program rather than ignore it and then let them destroy the growth of your program. We have to learn to play nicely with them and support them in their goals. It's not just a one-way road, one-way street, whatever. I hope you come away from this presentation with a few, I hadn't considered that moments. Or laugh, whatever, I'm funny. The examples are not how every person reacts in this presentation, so I give some examples of just feelings, thoughts, roles. This is not indicative of every company ever. Every person's different. Every organization's different. Just a quick caveat there. There will be two sections. I want to talk probably at length about agnostic problems. So role agnostic problems, and then things that maybe you hadn't considered within specific roles.
This is Romo Santiago from Experimentation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch. Now back to the episodes.
So let's go agnostic first. Let's talk about some general sentiments for roles with your problematic coworkers. So these are some things that y'all need to understand. How do we turn coworkers that hate seeing a Slack notification from you into a partner coworker where they're just as excited to get a Slack notification from you as Michael Scott was when he found out that Pam finally gave birth? I love The Office in case you can't tell. So anyway, the general slide template will be role on the left. So feelings, thoughts around the role on the left, some personality traits that might be more unique to feelings based on the right hand side, and then considerations for each on how to address those in the comments below. So on the role side, you might have my goals aren't aligned to your goals. I prioritize speed over risk. Testing slows us down. I'm never involved, or you always are involving me way too late in this process. Everything is a priority, which means nothing is a priority. I'm way too busy to help you, which, you know what? I'm too busy to help you too. I'm kidding. We're all busy. And I just don't know what you're testing, right? Are these things you've heard before? Probably. If not all, at least one, I guess. So if you are hearing these things, consider breaking the silos because, think about your optimization program with the sales team. If you have MQLs that the sales team is trying to optimize towards, and then you have your goals in your program, which is I need to improve conversion rate, just raw conversion rate, lead gen, not fixating on MQLs, then sales team goals are not your goals, and there's a disconnect. And then that could cause some frustration. That could cause some friction. Establish a clear DAISY. I think that's very, very important when a CRO jumps into any new role. Establish who is doing what, where are people accountable, where are people driving, where are people contributing, and where are people are informed. I think generally speaking on the informed side, to alleviate the I don't know what you're testing, inform everyone what you're testing. That should just be a blanket rule, because that eliminates, it increases transparency, and that's just helpful. Your program shouldn't be a black box. It should be something that anyone and everyone can contribute towards, and at the bare minimum be informed on when we think about DAISY. But also consider that what you might be accountable for is different than what other people might be accountable for. So if you're accountable for, providing a strategy, but at the end of the day, it's a product owner who will be making a decision on what to test and what not to test, that's important to know. Or it might be that the product owner is the person driving it, but you are the person who is majorly driving the, I said that right? Like the product owner is the one maybe who's driving it, but you might be the one accountable. So that might lead to you being the person who has to define the strategy. It just depends. It depends on the organization, but I think at the end of the day, setting that and making it black and white very clear that everyone can agree on is the most important thing for all of these roles. Having clear delineations, work on your processes, these are all things that are important that will get you to a point of I'm never involved, won't be a problem. I don't know what you're testing, and feelings of who's doing what here. Always be educating on the value of experimentation. Always be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Talk about the wins, talk about the learnings, talk about the value. All these things are important, and always be aware of prioritization for your asks. We'll talk a little bit about that in the individual functions, but don't make everything a priority. Not every single thing that you have to do is a priority. There are certain things that are more important. So just be aware of that. And prioritize, be honest. On the personality side, so this is stuff that maybe isn't role specific, but it still might be stuff that your coworkers might just feel. I don't know how tests can help. I don't get it. It's just, to me, it feels like a waste of time. You're telling me what to do. You're not being collaborative. So, I mean, on the flip side, if a hippo were to tell you, I don't like your tests, you're going to run this button color test, that's probably not going to feel good, right? Same way, if you're a CRO, don't be telling everyone else what to do. Put yourself in their shoes. I want to help you, but I just can't. There are some times where you might be aligned with a product owner. However, the product owner doesn't even have the accountability to make decisions. It might be that the leader is forcing both of y'all's hands, and you guys might be able to work together to come up with a plan that works well with both of y'all, unified together, maybe against a common enemy, so to speak. And then sometimes you just don't listen to my test ideas. I'd say, generally speaking, think of ways to have experimentation be involved in the process that helps. Think of how you can help. I, as a CRO person, I can help you with research. I could pull this data. I could look at the heat maps. I could run this test. Think of ways to help. I think if you are a help first CRO, people will love you. If you are a I want to prove you wrong CRO, many people will probably hate you. So look to help. Also, make everyone look good. If you're there gassing up people, gassing up is slang. I should not use slang. It's I'm not going to try to describe it. I'd say if you are out there looking for ways to elevate and make people look good so you can run a test for your product owner that says, I helped you lift conversion rate, or sorry, the feature that maybe the product owner rolled out lifted conversion rate by 7%, which is worth 600 grand. That is a very good case for that product owner to go make some money on his performance review, and he will like you, he or she will like you for that, right? So make everyone else look good, look to help. I'd also say be human, empathetic, and a partner. Don't tell people what to do, partner with them and work together. Also, assume the best intentions in everyone. Not everyone is looking to actively break something, ruin it. It might be that you are unified with someone else and you're trying to do stuff together. It's just, it might be other forces at hand that are forcing the hands of everyone. And maybe that's a good use case for y'all to work together as a unified front to combat the evil forces, so to speak. And then I'd say last point, critically important, have common and regular brainstorm sessions with everyone. your customer service team, your sales team, your product owners, your devs, everyone has a valuable feedback that they give on the site. Take their test ideas, run it through your prioritization framework. Not every test will bubble up to the top, but them being a contributing factor in the process gives them more investment and makes them more likely to want to help and contribute more to it. Especially if they have a test that is heavily prioritized, it wins, and then you shout them out, they will feel so much better about giving you even more and contributing more to the program. Versus if someone submits a test idea and you just say, that's a bad idea. F off. Don't talk to me. Don't bother me with your bad ideas. That person is never going to be a partner. And if you ever need help from them, you can be damn sure they're not going to help you. So there's a lot of humanness in growing your experimentation program and politicking for sure, in addition to a lot of other things. I'd say that was the agnostic piece. I want to go a little bit deeper into unique roles within your coworkers. So what are some considerations? First, let's start with the data analytics team. How do we turn annoyed data analysts into happy data analysts? First, put yourself in their shoes. They might be getting requests for seemingly random data. They're being tasked to track untrackable things from you, and they are getting requests from you on, give me data that supports this thing give me data that makes me look good. These are things that data analysts don't love. I'd say instead of providing seemingly random data, provide context. Give them all the reasons why. I need this data ask because this test, and this is where I'm going to use it. As much context as you can give, they are beyond happy to take more context. Also, like I said before, involve them early on the process. As early as you can in the process. If they're involved early in the process, they will be so much better off because they could provide that feedback that helps you say, hey, we could track this, or we might need a little bit more time to track this, or actually, crap, we can never track this because of the way our tech stack is. And that's important for you to know. Rather than blaming them when you give them 2 days to track something because the test is already live, get them earlier in the process. That builds trust. It shows that you're trying to be a partner. And then say, focus on learning with your data requests. So if you need to request something from data, don't say, find me data that tells me my test one. Say, show me all of the data that you can, because I want to make a decision on this test and I'm not sure if it won or lost. Just try and be objective rather than leading. On the personality side, a lot of times data people are tasked to pull things that most people can just kind of pull on their own with some very basic knowledge. So you requiring help of every step of the way, it's not a favorable thing for them. You also don't help them bridge the gap with data asks. And then last but not least, you're just being skeptical of their data pulls. You're saying, this doesn't look right. Pull it again, or give me different numbers, or maybe you're doing other things. I'm not sure what you're doing, but skepticism of data pulls, generally speaking, not helpful. I'd say first, trust your analysts and identify ways to watch your tone with them. Don't come to them saying the data's wrong. Come out with a question. Hey, I'm looking at this data. I'm looking at another source of data. I don't know if the two sources, if it makes sense for them to be off, but they're off. Can you help me validate? That's a positive tone. That's I'm seeing something that maybe doesn't make sense to me, versus your data's wrong. This source says this. What'd you do wrong? Like, don't do that. That's not nice. That person's not going to want to pull anything for you if you do that. And also, I'd say trust your analysts. And then do your best to be as self-serving as possible. So if there's a data request for conversion rate for a particular week in a month, you should be able to pull that on your own, honestly. If there's something a little bit more complex, it's okay if maybe you need the help from the data team, but work with them on requests. Give them as clear documentation. Try and help bridge the gap as much as you can. Okay, so let's talk a little bit next about brand and performance marketing challenges. So how do we turn annoyed marketers into happy marketers, where you're all working together in synergy and harmony rather than not, honestly. So let's look at brand and performance marketing challenges. So on the role side, it might be things like, I can't test this. It's a 3-day campaign. So what do you want? We can't test this. I'm just going to do this. It might be things where sometimes there's a chicken and egg scenario where you'll be optimizing for landing pages, and then the paid search team will say, actually, we're changing the ad, and you have to now change the landing page to match our ad. And it's like, well, wait, I was testing into something, and now you're changing the ad copy, and you're changing the traffic going to this page. I think there's a chicken and egg scenario of, do you optimize landing pages or ads first? But y'all have to work in harmony together to make sure these are a unified journey rather than just a, throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks kind of strategy, which isn't really a strategy, or at least it probably is, but it's a bad one. Testing can impact SEO and quality score, and that's a very valid consideration that you should always be aware of. So I'd say within considerations for these, always offer to, I'd say first, understand their problems, goals, and their KPIs. So first, understand what are the problems that they see. Maybe they do have an issue with quality score, and maybe you can help them test into improving the quality score. Or SEO is problematic, maybe you can help them test into improving SEO. And maybe they'll have ideas on how to improve SEO, but they don't know how to test it. So then they talk to you, CRO person, and you execute the test for them and you build it. So there's a great partnership there, but understand their problems. And then understand their goals. There might be certain campaigns that are a branding campaign. So if you're a CRO person optimizing this landing page for conversion rate, and they're like, cool, but we're trying to optimize for engagement metrics and, as many impressions as we can, and as many impressions as we can. So understand their goals, so you two are both rowing the boat in the same direction rather than rowing it in different directions, and then y'all ain't going nowhere. And then I'd say also offer a testing plan once you've understood their goals to support their goals. So if research is important to them, maybe go into Google Analytics and help give them some research that'll help on them. If they have a test, or if they have a campaign that's launching for 3 days, maybe run a multi-arm bandit instead of a full test, because maybe they're trying to optimize just for conversion rate. And then boom, you've understand their problem, provided a solution, and you're helping them make them look good. So next, on the personality side, they might feel like, another stakeholder, another cook in the kitchen. That sucks. Also, hey, cool, you ran a test. That's cool. All these test results are valid, but they invalidate all my whole testing plan. So what do I do now? That's kind of annoying. Then a lot of times, performance marketers especially, they have a budget of a goal they need to hit for the month. And then any test you run has a risk of affecting you hitting those goals. So if that happens, the performance marketers at the end of the day are accountable for hitting their goals. And if they don't hit their goals because you ran a losing test, they'll be mad at you because they don't hit their goals, but it was your fault, so to speak. So something to consider. And then this was one of my good friends who's a performance marketer who came to me and said, look, at the end of the day, y'all are experts, and I don't know what to test and you do. But sometimes I look at your test and I say, this is a weird test. This makes no sense. I don't get it. So if these are problems that maybe are on the personality side that you're seeing with the brand and performance marketers, first educate them on what can be tested. Offer opportunities to help, right? Like I keep on saying, offer opportunities to help. Maybe look at what's doing well and then offer encouragement to say, hey, by the way, I could test this to maybe help you hone in and continue to optimize on this thing that's working well. Or maybe identify opportunities of things that are underperforming and say, by the way, here's a thing you could do to maybe test to improve this underperforming thing, or do based on research. And then boom, partnership rather than combative relationship. So be a partner. And then on that last point, like I talked about, where they might see your test ideas and say, I don't like it. Don't just stop there and say, it's my test idea, do it. Or, well, this person's just difficult to work with. Dig deeper and understand why. Because you might not fully understand their problem or goals. Dig deeper to understand why. Maybe it's a small design tweak, or maybe there's something more fundamental that y'all aren't really connected on that could be, that you guys just have to really hash out and air it out, and that's fine. Next, management, leadership challenges. How do we turn an annoyed leader into a leader who's your partner, right? What we need is partnerships, not combative relationships. So what I've seen is sometimes leaders will come and say, hey, testing isn't priority. We need to do more things. More things have to just be done. Testing isn't a doing, it's a test. So we need more things to be done. They don't have the resources to give you. We're all fighting for resources. Shocker. They don't have the resources to run your test because they're too busy trying to do things, right? And your roadmap doesn't align with my vision as a leader. I see your roadmap has a bunch of button color tests. Why aren't we testing content gating strategy? Why aren't we testing something else that I think would be more impactful with my vision, what I want to do with the business? So first, I'd say if their priorities do, consider that they might not understand the risk of not testing. So they might think it's safer to just roll out things than to test. So educate them on the risk of not testing. Talk to them about saves where a test that loses is something that you didn't do at 100%. So it might have cost 50%, but it didn't cost 100% if it was a, control versus test. Also, just take a step back and try and understand what is their appetite for risk and confidence in decision making. We are, as experimentation people, hold data and decision making to a very high standard and a very low appetite for risk. They might not have that. So you might have to meet in the middle, because if they're the ones accountable for decision making, you might have to concede a little bit on that. I'd say don't silence yourself, but you might have to concede. And it is what it is. Honestly, it is what it is. If you aren't in a decision making power, you might have to concede and say, your appetite for risk is low. Here are the risks, and just outline the risks. Be very clear and give them all the information they need to make the decision they need to make. And then also get to know their problems and what do they want to solve for. Because, if you have leaders who just don't like your testing strategy, sometimes it might be that they're kind of just being butts about it and they have their particular vision. They don't like testing. They don't like being challenged. But it could be that they don't like your roadmap for a very good reason, and dig deeper and to understand that very good reason. That's important. On the personality side, they might feel like your tests aren't winning, which again is fundamental to not understanding what testing is. But they might say, you ran a test and it didn't win. What the hell? What did you do wrong? As if it's our fault. Our crystal ball didn't detect that the test was going to lose, right? That's why we test. That's not why we just do. Or we don't just do things because we don't always know how everything will work out. Anyway, I got to get off the soapbox. Sometimes, especially highest paid person's opinions, people who trust their gut feel over data, they might dislike your tests because it's seen as a challenge to their decision making, to their power. But it could also be seen as a threat of, there might be actual data that disproves something that I want to do. So you can't have data that disagrees with your decision if you never run a test, right? Big brain. Not really. But it might be that the board is on their ass, or they might be getting pushes from other folks to do certain things. Maybe it's middle management that's getting pushes from other people to do things. So they might need results fast. It comes from a place of empathy to say, I understand that you might be getting pressure, and then take a step back and say, how can I help you? And then the last point I think is so critically important to leadership is, I am closer to this product than you, especially if it's the CEO or someone who's there from like the ground up. I built this product with my blood, sweat, and tears. For you as a CRO person to give me like 3 data points and say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, I am so much more connected to the success of this than you will ever be. So your opinions, your stuff don't matter. I matter. It's my thing. My ass is on the line. So, and they're probably more passionate about it. They might be more passionate about the way their brand is being represented, about the way their product's being represented, their service. So I think it's worthwhile to just take a step back and say, leaders are humans too. They have feelings, and you coming at someone from data might be seen as, you just don't sympathize that I'm working hard on this product. Right or wrong, it's a worthwhile perspective to consider. So first, I'd say Have tact in explaining test losers. Again, every test, theoretically, if you run a test to learn program, not test to win, which is the best way to run testing, in my opinion, have tact in explaining loser, saying it was a save, we learned something. If a hippo has a test idea they're really bullish about and then it loses, don't come at them saying, haha, your test lost, right? Like, you could think that, I've thought it, but you don't necessarily come to them saying, ha, your test lost, you suck, your ideas are bad and you should feel bad. That's not helpful. Instead, you explain, we learned something quite new, here's the next test we're going to do, this is a really cool test idea, we learned some cool stuff. I think that's the best way to kind of generally approach that. Honestly, in the last two pieces, it's just have a human conversation with them, trying to understand their personal motivations, and then always suggest. I think that's an important thing to do, is suggest what you want to do, highlight limitations, highlight why you're choosing to do the things you want to do, and then, you know, don't force them. You may not be the decision maker in a lot of these things, and especially if you're not, do not be the person who's forcing, because it'll be seen as more problematic than helpful. I'd also say, last subtle plug, Tracy and I go pretty in depth on this podcast when we talk about hippo thinking. So episode 3 of From A to B, if you guys want to take a listen, and we go a little bit deep into this. So take a listen if you'd like. If you don't, I won't hate you that much. I'll hate you a little bit, but I won't hate you that much. Okay, anyway. So devs and engineering team challenges. How do we turn frustrated devs into happy devs? Unrelated, I guess entirely related, I guess. If you love the IT crowd, connect with me, because the IT crowd is one of the most best shows in television. Don't at me. Or if you want to at me, that's fine. Talk to me about it, because it's a great show. Okay. Devs and engineering. One of the things they hate about testing is they take too long. It's not one, it's a lot of things, sorry. They take too long, complex, they slow the site down, they lack security and break things. Devs might love tests, but these are the things that they probably hate about tests. And CROs, in addition to that, don't always know how to request things. And sometimes devs can't even build what you're asking for. They might want to, and they might do their darndest to try, but they might not be able to build everything that you're asking for. So knowing that this is a consideration, first, learn to code and learn how to talk to them. It doesn't mean you have to be a developer, but learn to speak the language. If you go to Spain, you should know how to speak basic Spanish to be able to... Oh, I don't know why my thing refreshed. Can someone edit this, please? Much appreciated. Okay. Okay, so when we're thinking about, okay, I'll just kind of splice it in here. So consider learning to code and speak their lingo. That doesn't mean you have to be a developer, but if you go to Spain, you should be able to know basic Spanish to be able to navigate the country and kind of do things around there. Same thing. Doesn't mean you have to be an expert in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but be able to talk to them, be able to understand them. That's important. It shows that you're trying to help them, and you're trying to, devs appreciate when they see that. So anyway, learn to code, generally speaking. Also, be very clear in your documentation. Don't just say, build this thing I saw on Amazon's website. Instead, clearly document. If you need to use a UX team for a design that gives them explicit mock-ups and stuff, fantastic. But document as much as you can. Give explicit direction, document expected behavior, document targeting, document hover statuses, hex codes for colors and things, links to URLs of things you want to embed. Think like a developer at the end of the day and pre-answer any potential questions, because what happens is if you don't request things properly, there will be a back and forth, and that will slow things down and it will frustrate both of y'all. So make sure you do both of those things. Sorry, I'm gonna ask for another editing note. My fucking lamp just turned off. Okay, sorry. There's two. This is the second edit. Hopefully this is the last one. Okay, so as far as personality, devs might feel like I do all the work because I'm in the back end coding. I get no credit for wins, and I get blamed for bugs. So seems like a lot of times devs are being treated as a scapegoat, and that's not good. Sometimes arbitrary things are needed to be built, even if the devs really want to build your cool test idea. Sometimes their prioritization can be wonky, and they might be frustrated, just like you might be frustrated. So you guys can maybe build a partner on that. It can be frustrating, especially if you're a dev, on this third point of, you built this, I had slaved over building this test for you and you just never launched it. That's frustrating. I didn't appreciate that. I spent a lot of work doing this and it just never went out. And that happens a lot with devs, but especially with tests, that should not happen. And a lot of times work cultures just foster hating devs like they foster hating data analysts when numbers don't jive with what they want them to. So consider that this is the mindset of a developer. First of all, I'd say shout them out as much as you can. They truly are unsung heroes. So F it. Sing for them. give them their limelight. Let them shine. If you have a test winner, tell them, hey dude, Mike built this test. He slaved over this. There were some complicated things. All I did was push a big green button. Mike built this test out for me. So shout them out. Give them the credit. And on the side of arbitrary things need to be built, try and insert yourself into testing as much as you can to validate these arbitrary things that are being built, or potentially even invalidate them. I'd also say give your developers autonomy to dictate how things should be built and run, because they might offer an opportunity. If you say, build this test exactly this way, they might be happy to do it. If you say, I'm hypothesizing this, here's a couple designs, what do you think? They might turn back and say, actually, you know what? If we went this way, it would be easier on the dev side, and the go live will be a lot easier too, and it'll be a lot quicker. So maybe that's a great opportunity for you to be like, great, I can even be faster. Yeah. And it still is the same hypo. Fantastic. So involve them in the scoping and the prioritization, because they need to know how heavy of a test. They need to be letting you know how heavy or light of a test build it can be, but it'll also allow you to more intelligently prioritize your efforts, rather than saying build this and they're like, cool, it's going to take me 4 weeks to build this. Rather than if you just have the conversation, you might have been able to build 95% of the same test at 95% of the speed, or faster. I don't know, math. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about project managers and product owners. So how do we turn these siloed functions where product managers might come to you and be like, what is it that you do here? Make them into partner product owners. Also related, Office Space, fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, absolutely watch it. So let's take a little bit of a peek behind the curtain for this persona. So my KPIs are quantities of features shipped. It's not always about quality. Quality is definitely a consideration, but quantity. I am ranked, scored, get my raise on how much I ship. And then I have limited resources to ship. So rigorous ROI, knowing the ROI and the prioritization is incredibly important to me. And then last on the role side, decisions are my domain, not yours. Step off, stay in your lane. They might feel, that is how they might feel sometimes. Not always, that's how they might feel sometimes. So first, I talked about this before, set up a clear DAISY. DAISY is super important because it's important to know where the decision making truly lay. If the product manager and the product owner is the decider, then you should know where you need to fit in. If you, CRO, are the decider, they should know where they need to fit in. So set up a clear DAISY, include prioritization of tasks within that DAISY. So the test prioritization, I think it's important for them to be involved in that process of the framework, and then maybe even scoring for things like dev lift, design lift, things like that. Maybe you want to involve your devs on that as well. Timing, they need to be involved in all those things. I'd say also partner with them on tests to show impact of the features that you're shipping. And generally speaking, like I said, with leadership, understand their risk for appetite. On the personality side, they might also be getting pressure from leadership. They might be getting pressure from other people. They might feel like, I know CRO, I've done it before. They might not always know how to do it. So understanding that they might have Dunning-Kruger, or they might actually be smart, but there might be little things that you as a CRO might know more. Or, I mean, shit, you as a CRO might not know as much as them. So just, I guess this is the bigger point that I'm not accounting for in the slides now that I think about it, of just, knowledge can be fluid. It's okay if maybe together, it's okay if maybe individually you don't know everything, but you need to know how to work together, and you need to try and identify the best processes for all these things. So anyway, my experience has generally been a lot of product owners understand some CRO, but don't know enough. And I come in as I will help you run better experiments, and I'll be a good contributor to the process. A lot of experimentation, a lot of product owners want some form of autonomy. They're coming in as, I guess, like mini CEOs. They're trying to run their own product. And if a CRO comes in and is basically dictating the strategy, and they might feel like, well, do I have autonomy here? You're taking away my autonomy, and that's frustrating. They might feel like certain ways are always the way they've done it. I had a conversation with a product owner, and she was saying, we've never had a testing tool, so we've never had to test. So I've been comfortable never testing. That's valuable feedback, right? That's not the best way to do it. She recognized it's not the best way to do it, but it's just the way we've always done it. So you have to learn how to work in a new way, build a new process, have a little bit of empathy for the fact that they want to help. They just might not know how. So anyway, last point that she that product owner also called out is that trust has to be a two-way street. And it needs to occur, and it has to be a two-way street. So it can't just be us talking to each other past each other. It has to be that we're both on the same page, that like the Titanic, I don't want to say Titanic, because we shouldn't be sinking together. We should be raising together. Let's say pilot and co-pilot. Y'all are both working together. Y'all are both doing different things, but we work together in synergy. And that just has to happen. You guys will fly the plane together, or you won't. Plane analogy is probably weird. I don't know much about planes. I guess hopefully y'all understand what I'm trying to get across here. So I'd say, especially with product owners, be solution centric. Ask them for questions they want answered. Offer a research plan on how to help solve for it. Be helpful. Don't CRO-splain. It's a TM. I got to trademark that. That's a word I'm kind of made up. Don't CRO-splain. Don't be that guy who's like, well, this is the CRO way. Your way sucks. My way is the only way. Understand. Be a partner. Don't be that person. Always focusing on partnership rather than combativeness is a good thing. Let's talk a little bit about UX. How do we turn a frustrated UX into happy UX? So I'm going to try and breeze through these because we're kind of getting through a lot of overlapping things at this point. But your research will conflict with my tests. A little bit of leadership overlap here. But yeah, your research says that the design that I have is not great. So where do we go from here? You might take that personally. Your tests are wildly off base from design systems. I think that's something I learned pretty early on, is just because I see something that looks good doesn't mean it will actually flow with the rest of the page. So I think design systems should be allowed to bend a little bit, and designers should be a little bit flexible, but you as a CRO shouldn't be just offering random things that just don't follow a system. And then if you're a CRO, UX people deal with this as strong opinions and are nitpicky all over the place, but CROs, like, don't be super, super nitpicky and don't have absurdly strong opinions, because I'd say that's a general rule of testing. If you have a strong opinion, like, are you data driven if you just have opinions? But anyway, that's my opinion on opinions. This does delay designs from coming out if you just keep on having these back and forths, though. Solutions, involve them early on in the process. Make sure CRO and UX are tightly knit. The research is the same. You're showing them your test results. They're showing them your research. Designs are linked up with all that stuff. Just make sure y'all are very closely tied together. Use testing to validate their designs. And then like with product ownership, shipping features, validate their research, validate their tests, help them get a raise. And then I'd say be okay with trimming down on design if it means it's less effort on the dev and the UX side. It's okay with MVP to test hypos and then aggressively iterate. A lot of times, like I said before, CROs tend to CRO splain design. The UX people on your teams are the experts. Trust them. Just like your engineers are experts, data analysts are experts. Don't CRO splain. Just don't do it. Be prescriptive is not great. Be collaborative. And then I got this interesting feedback from another UI person I talked to, which is don't just make me copy what everyone else is doing. So don't just say Amazon is doing this. Give me a design that's in our design systems here. I'd say take steps back and offer up problem statements within there and say, help me design this thing, because they might have a creative mind that's in their design systems. Instead of just retreading competitors over and over and over again, give your UX team autonomy to design some really cool stuff. Rely on their expertise and then give them the freedom. All right. So I know this has been a little bit of a marathon. This is the last persona we'll talk about. How do we turn an annoying agency into an invested agency partner? If you'll remember from Men in Black, which is a fantastic movie, this is when Tommy Lee Jones, I forget the guy's name now, but he gave him the cricket, which is the gun that looks small, even though it packed a punch. This was a funny thing. It feels like a lot of times experimentation agencies can feel like this, where it's like, finally, we signed a contract, but really you're giving us a cricket rather than a big gun that we can use to like actually get some work done. You're boxing us into this small corner. I had this experience at Spiro where a couple clients were artificially boxing us into these smaller boxes. So we had to educate them and get them out of these challenges. And we'll talk a little bit about that here. So first, my business priorities aren't reflected on your roadmap. Pretty much similarity with leadership challenges. Unique to the agency side, I'm not seeing the impact I was sold on. I hired you for test winners. Why haven't tests won? Or I hired you to improve my conversion rate. Why isn't my conversion rate winning? Which we'll talk about a little bit in a sec. Last point, why are tests so slow to launch? I just assume I look at the WYSIWYG and I can just do all this stuff myself, when in reality, there's a lot of QA that's involved. First, when business priorities aren't reflected on your roadmap, take the time to understand the business. Talk to stakeholders. Identify the gaps in their program and then understand how you help. Daisy is also important with this too, in my opinion, but understand where you could fit in and serve help, because maybe they have their own UX team. So you need to focus more on dev and building out the tests and analyzing the tests. Maybe they have the dev, but they don't have the research back. So help them a lot with the research, give them prioritization frameworks. Identify the gaps so that you can work together synonymously rather than, trying to do everything in dupe efforts. Also, I'd say if tests are slow, sometimes that's just a factor of the way that business is. People are on vacation. Things just can be slow sometimes. Optimize the processes to be faster, to be fair, while keeping quality up. But I'd also say, take a step back and say, maybe we can just test MVPs rather than pixel perfect. And maybe you need to talk to the client about not being so focused on being pixel perfect. On the personality side, why aren't we running tests on pages that I think are important? It might be that the pages are important and it wasn't communicated that they are important. Or it might be the page gets 7 sessions a month. We're not going to run a test on this page. Sorry. We can do all the research. We're just not going to run a test on a page that gets 7 sessions a month. Why aren't we running my tests? So a leader will come in and say, my tests aren't being run. You're running all your stupid tests. Why? That might be a need to explain the prioritization framework. It might be other things. You just keep trying to upsell me on things. I see this so many times with agencies I've worked with, not CRO agencies, but just agencies in general. It seems like many agencies are just trying to upsell and just trying to keep on squeezing out as much money as they can from you. Dude, be honest. When I was working at Spiro, I did upsell certain things, but I'll be honest, I was anything I told you I was trying to upsell you on, you can guarantee that's something I genuinely felt would be valuable for the business. And I laid out a very clear plan of why I thought it would be helpful and the things we'd learn, the things we'd gain from it. But certain times it'd say, wait, what about this thing? Why can't we do this? I'd say, that's not worth it. I don't think there's going to be ROI. I'll help you do it. If you want to spend the money, I'll happily take the bonus. But I don't think this is valuable to your program. These are the things that are valuable. A little bit of transparency there. The last point I say about agency is you are playing way too nicely. So it's okay if while you're working with an agency to push back on them and say, I am taking a stance here. We have to do this thing this way. Otherwise, these are the limitations. These are the problems that will ripple out, and documenting those. Sometimes, just like with a baby, maybe not a baby, maybe with a child touching a hot pan or something, they'll learn hot things are hot. Sometimes not agency owners, clients have to learn the hard way. It's just like sometimes, honestly, leadership has to learn the hard way. Key point here, educate them on testing, explain what you learned with winners and losers, always be honest, empathize, be okay with taking a stand as appropriate, be human. All right, that's a lot of stuff I talked to y'all about. I'll wrap with one last tip. Ready? You might be the problem. Just to be clear, I went through a lot of things of maybe irrational feelings that your coworkers may or may not be feeling in their mental models. At the end of the day, y'all, you might be the problem. And I kind of towed into it with some of the explanations, but recognize that maybe you are the person talking to the data analyst in a problematic fashion. Maybe you're the person giving really bad specs to your designers. Maybe you're the person fighting hippos on every test, and you're not very clearly communicating why you're running the test. You're talking about prior frameworks. Take a step, take a self-reflection and say, I might be the problem here. So anyway, that wraps it. I know this was a little bit longer, but anyway, thank y'all so much. If you followed all the way through, I really appreciate you taking all of this time to listen into all of this. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I talk about stuff like this, a lot more low-key. My podcast with Tracy from A to B, if you want to take a listen, would love to have more listeners on this. It follows a similar style of kind of raw, uncut thoughts of topics in experimentation in digital marketing. It's not as maybe long as this webinar. Episodes tend to be about 20 minutes, but yeah. Anyway, feel free to subscribe. Would love it. Thank you all so much for tuning into this presentation. Appreciate it.
This is Romo Santiago from Experimentation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch.